All right. Ready, Brett? Okay. I am your host, ToneyBoi. This is Outside Influence. Today, I have a really great MC, artist, person, cultural influencer. I can go on for days. We have Billy Edreys, aka Edreys Wajed. How are you doing today, bro?
I'm spectacular, man. Thanks for having me, man. Making me blush. Word. I just never know who's looking, man.
Oh,
you just never know who's looking at work you do, man. So I appreciate it, man.
Oh man, we appreciate you for coming out. So we'll get right into it. I'm gonna start with the hip hop side, and we'll go into the art. With the hip hop, the name Billy Edreys. How'd you come up with that?
So my birth name is Edreys Wajed, right?
Right.
And that was my name prior to that was Edreys, Eddiereys, which is basically Edreys is broken up a little bit.
Okay.
But then, it would always get misspelled, even just as simple as that was. So then I went with Edreys. That was always getting ripped up and misspelled. So Billy Edreys Williams came from just my affinity for like Star Wars. I'm from that era, man. And Billy D. Williams. Was the first black dude I really saw portrayed in the in the cult classic kind of way, right? And so I'm like, Billy, right? D for Edreys Williams, Billy Edreys Williams.
Right.
If like they misspell that, then I'm in trouble. You know what I'm saying? I just really wanted to simplify it. I really wanted to simplify it. So, and that seemed to work. But there were some challenges even being by me taking on that moniker too. So.
Well, it's a very creative name, and then just to have it run off with your government name, that's really cool. So, how did you get into the hip hop? What was your first start in hip hop?
Man, well, again, I just from the era when hip hop was just being just started spreading, just kind of populating and infecting everything, and so I always came up listening to the Grandmaster Flash and the Melly Mel's. I mean, the first rhyme that I memorized was the Sugar Hill. I mean, I think everybody probably memorized that, but that was the first one I memorized.
Right.
And I was hooked from that, and then I started, just trying to write and rapping in the mirror with my brush in my hand, and imagining what it must be like to rock in front of people.
Yeah.
You talk about like school talent shows. I was jumping in those summer program talent shows, just always doing those, battling at the lunch table, like all those things, man, that were kind of like prerequisites to you being about that business of wanting to be an MC,
Mm-hmm. So
that's really pretty much where it started, man. And, I came up with a group of dope artists, man, and so I was always really low key because I was always an artist first.
Right.
Visual artist. And what I noticed is that a lot of my predecessors, man, just kind of, I guess, grew up.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody told me, man, you gotta grow up sometime. I guess they grew up, and I just kind of stuck with it and was like, man, I gotta see this thing through,
Yeah.
So it was just affinity for me, man, to just really be expressive through poetry and, making beats. Like I took on the whole thing, man. Like, culturally wise, like.
I think I've seen you break dance, and
that's what
I've seen you make beats.
I was the Swiss Army knife of it.
Yeah.
I could literally do graffiti. I could dance. I could, write poetry. I could write rhymes. I could produce beats. Like all the things.
Yeah.
And so I just entertained it and just, it's a part of who I was, man.
Well,
who I am.
You do it very well, brother. So me personally, I came up watching you in the Baby Steps era. I was young still, 17, 18 years old, sneaking, hopping over fences, whatever. Right. But I think the first time I saw you perform was at Broadway Joe's. I think it was Rebel Radio 4 and 5 release. So I'm dating myself there, but yeah, that was the first time I saw you perform. give me some insight on how those baby step days were, so people can understand. Like hip hop didn't just start in Buffalo in the mid 2010s.
Yeah, no. So Broadway Joe's main street in like Minnesota.
Yep.
So Baby Steps, right? It's run by Josh Brown. Josh Brown from like Pseudo Intellects, I think it was the name of. Yeah, I think that was the name of the group. And so they had the location. The motto was just no radio. You know what I'm saying? Like straight underground, grimy, gritty.
This is post social media too. I mean, pre-social media.
Pre-social media. Pre-social media. This is printed out flyers. This is hand to hand. This is performing wherever you could perform, and that was like performing at Broadway Joe's during that time. Outside of maybe performing for like a big huge act at like the Odd or whatever, like that was the place to rock. Sound was terrible. I remember still at that time they still was allowed to smoke indoors then.
Oh yeah.
So I remember performing in there, and you standing up on the stage 3 feet high,
higher,
and you in the clouds, you in the smoke.
Yeah.
But Baby Steps was the place where you had to pretty much cut your teeth at, man.
Yeah.
If you thought that you was dope or nice, you had to, do what you had to do in order to network where you need to network, whether you open up for somebody or whatever.
Right.
And so Broadway Joe's was just a consistent place for you to show up every Friday or Saturday whenever they had the shows, man, and just network, man.
Yeah.
Watch, learn. That's what I did a lot of, man.
We had a lot of venues, back in the day. Even when in our growth in my era of the hip hop, we had Broadway Joe's, we had Sound Lab, we had Club W, and the list goes on. Yeah. But I feel like your guys' era really utilized those spots.
Yeah.
And kind of alley-oop those to us.
We tried. It was difficult though, man, because especially back then. I mean, it's still here now, but the stigma. Yeah. Anytime they would talk to you about, oh, you want to do something here? Okay, cool. And the minute you say hip, you know what I'm saying? You could barely get the other part out. And they're like everything changed. Yeah. Everything changes. All the conditions and what they charge you, everything changed, man. You know?
Pay that extra security deposit.
Dude, first, middle, last month's rent, everything. You had to, everything changed. So, but the network was dope. Which I admire, like what y'all doing, man. Y'all got your own collective, and it was almost pretty much like that back in the early 90s, man. It was just a collective, and if you weren't in the place to be, if you weren't at Broadway Joe's, there was no way for you to network in order to find out who's who. Yeah. I met a lot of dope dudes that I'm still connected with today, man, from Cool Taj, who's still rocking now.
Yeah,
man. My man Jay Snow still rocking. He was 42 back then.
42, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all these dudes were there.
Yeah.
When we were young,
For sure.
And so the respect is a long string of respect, man. When we see each other to this day, man. I didn't name a lot of folks, but
you're not forgotten. No, you guys, you're not forgotten.
Yeah. Those are just the ones that popped off the top of my, because I still see them regularly.
Yeah. So we touched the hip hop. Nowadays, 2020, 2019, everybody sees Edreys' name as the big mural paintings and all the other great visual arts that you've been doing. How did you really get into that and making that your main platform right now?
Yeah. So the transition from doing music, because I pursued music with everything. Like, the only reason I was able to step away from music was because I was cool with gambling everything and losing. Like, I basically put all my chips on the table, right, and walked out broke. Like, I mean, like, just in the analogy of like a casino. Like, I went in where everything was like, man, if I lose, if this is it, and I'm walking away. So I was cool with pushing it musically as far as I could go. Like, I just couldn't, things weren't where they are today, like as far as resources, and I didn't have those things in 2010, So it was painful though. It was very painful. It left me in a really dark space because I walked away from music and I went to teach at Tapestry Charter High School as a visual arts teacher in high school because I had to feed my fam. You know, like, it wasn't because I wanted to. That wasn't something I wanted to, but I had to, like I said, grow up, right? And so doing the teaching thing for a couple years, I was just going into this deep, dark depression, was not expressing myself, wasn't being true to myself, rather than honoring the talents that I have. And then I slowly just broke out of that. I slowly broke out of that by just getting back to my craft of creating art. And then just slowly, each project that I would do, I was just growing and coming out of that darkness, And so here we are now, just basically step by step by a renewed contract with myself, me being who I am, being a creative, right? And so, I mean, that's just where I am, man. So each project is just another peg to wherever I'm going, because I don't really know where it's going.
Right.
I just know to show up and be who I am, and I think who I am is just, I've given myself permission to just be dope. Like, I feel that.
So you're basically setting your failure up to be a success. Which I feel a lot of people don't understand that process. You have to take your failure as lessons and not as knockdowns. Yes. And just to be able to, that resiliency, man, to reinvent. Like, if that's not the thing, man, either you're gonna stick with that thing, or you're gonna flip away to figure out, you know what I'm saying, just to renew yourself. If you go into a cocoon, how are you going to emerge from it? And so that's what I did, man. And I still love music. However, now, instead of me making music, I'm producing music visually. I love what you do with the scoring pieces.
That's what that is.
That's really unique. I love that.
That was my healing, though, because I loved music. I couldn't step away from it that far away from it. And so when I started to realize I could still have this connection, it's almost like somebody who wanted to go to the NBA, right? Maybe had a very, very bad injury and lost hopes of going to the NBA. That don't mean you can't be a trainer.
Can't be a coach.
That don't mean you can't be a coach. That's
front office, anything.
Right? So you're still connected. So that's how the art piece hit me. It was like, I can still be connected to music, I can still. So yeah, that's
cool. So where do you see yourself maybe 10 years down the road, pushing your craft? Would it be more art? Would it be more music? Would it be teaching? You mentioned that. Where do you see yourself going down the road?
That's a great question, man. I didn't see myself being here 5 years ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So let's go 10 years ago. 2010 is when I stepped away from music. I didn't see myself being here doing a 40-foot mural 10 years from now. You see what I'm saying? Right. So 10 years from now, it's going to be true, whatever it is. It's going to be true to who I am, and it's going to make sense for those who have been watching from the sidelines. It's going to make sense.
Right.
In the sense of, like, if you see me somewhere eventually doing a 30-foot tall sculpture, it's going to make sense to you because I do jewelry too. Right?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's going to make sense. Whatever's ahead, but what I can guarantee you is it's going to be authentic. That's a guarantee. It's going to be authentic Edreys, period. Whatever's coming in 10 years from now. So I would love to own the space, like we talked about. I would love to do those things. So I have, I would love to be able to support, who's ever next, the next generation. I mean, my son
Your son's dope too. Did you make these sneakers?
Yeah.
Yeah, your son's
dope. Yeah, these are my work shoes, man. I mean, I don't know if everybody else works in their threes, but you know. But so yeah, like that, man. I just want to be able to influence and inspire whoever's watching to, you know, to be who they are, man. Because that's the value, that's the real worth, to be who you are, man. You know.
Well, this kind of ties into the last question that I have. What advice do you have for the young Edreys, the young creative, you know, anybody that's coming up in this art world that's trying to push their brand?
Damn. Man, it requires. I'm a Taurus, man, so they always use the word stubborn. Taurus is stubborn. I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to being determined. Like, it's a whole different thing. Stubborn is when I'm not doing what you want me to do. Determined is doing what I want to do. So that's what I would suggest to the youth, man, is to be determined. You know, because determination is what's going to allow you to, when somebody tells you, though, that ain't that good, or somebody says, well, I wouldn't do that if I was you, determination is what allows you to cross that line and that threshold. Right? And just take ownership and take accountability for when it does not work. But that's to me, that's what I've learned. It's like, when you listen to somebody else and it doesn't work out, you have somebody to blame. Like, that's just how it works. You have somebody to blame, and then you end up living a life of just blaming, right? Everybody's responsible for your failure. When you give yourself permission to be determined to have it the way you want it, it's only you to look at. You got yourself.
It's only yourself to blame.
You got yourself. You got yourself to blame for your success, though. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, for a failure, it depends on how you describe failure or how you define it, right? It's just an effort. It's an effort that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Okay, cool. But take accountability for the steps that you took. Like, what did you do? What could you do better? Who can you reach out to for help, right? Those are the things that matter most, man. So give yourself, I would just suggest people to be determined, man. Be determined to define yourself for yourself. Like, that's, to me, is the key. I would love to have had that advice at 16.
Yeah. I think everybody looks for advice young that, you know, nobody really gets. But, you know, we grow, we learn, we fail. We fail, and, you know, we grow.
You have to. I mean, well, the last piece of it, too, is adapt. Right? That's in nature, man. You go, you know, that's in nature. That's just how things are, you know, in the natural world, not this artificial stuff, you know, with man-made things. I'm talking about nature. You either adapt or you die. Period.
That's deep. That is deep.
You adapt.
Well, that's the last question I have for you. Before we get out of here, give people your social plugs and whatever, you know, releases you got coming out, or things you want people to check out. Yeah, so my social is all Edreys, Edreys, you know, so shout out to my parents for naming me a name such as that, because there aren't many. There aren't many spelled that way. So, I mean, I have a mural right up the street right now that I'm working on. Love black boys even when they become men, love black girls even when they become women. That's right up the block at the 700 Main Street area. And then coming up, man, I mean, I have other murals that may pop up if the weather holds out. Right now it's really cold. It's hard to work in cold weather. Well, it's starting when the temperature is dropping. Right. But there's always going to be something I'm cooking up, man. Always. Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Edreys Wajed, a.k.a. Billy Edreys Williams, a.k.a. Big Brother. Yes, this is Outside Influence, but I have Camo Monks play us with some tunes. Make sure y'all cop all the merch. This Art Dealer, you already know the vibe. Yo, you should be tired of fronting.